We talked about cannabis and our important goals in regulating cannabis, in making sure that kids don't have access to marijuana, and that we get the black market out of the sale of cannabis. We had a really good discussion starting last night. We had the benefit of Bill Blair with us, who talked to us about the overall cannabis market and how we could meet those objectives, and in particular how those objectives played into the discussion around taxation. Today we talked about that extensively, and we got to an agreement that I think will make a real difference in achieving those goals for Canada. We agreed that it was very important to recognize the various orders of government, the two orders of government and municipalities, in coming to a conclusion in how we could split revenues. We agreed that the federal government would take 25% of the share of taxation revenues over the next 2 years and leave 75% of those taxation revenues to provinces so that they can fairly deal with their costs and also work with municipalities to make sure that we actually achieve our goals of keeping kids safe and taking the black market out of the market. So we had a situation where we had 14 jurisdictions out of 14, the 3 territories, the 10 provinces, and the federal government, all agree to the key principles. We also had 13 out of the 14 jurisdictions ready today to sign on to our approach to taxation. And one jurisdiction, Manitoba, that said they might need a little more time, but fully agreed with the principles that we got to. So I want to say that's truly a very good outcome.
I want to bring in my colleague, the CBC's Evan Dyer, who has been watching this along with us from Ottawa. What do you make of this, Evan? Because they went in asking for what, 50-50 the feds wanted on the division of revenues, right?
That's right. 50-50 was the formula the federal government presented at the last one of these conferences. And, you know, we've always heard the provinces say that's not enough. For example, Rachel Notley wanted 100% for the provinces. She said she couldn't see any reason why the feds should remain with any money at all from this, claiming that all of the costs would fall at a lower level of government. But now we see a deal that puts an end to that bickering between 2 levels of government. But I notice leaves quite a bit of room for bickering at lower levels. So if indeed the federal government is going to keep no more than 25% and cap that at $100 million, it may end up, in fact, being less than 25% at the end of the day if those tax revenues are a little bit higher than anticipated. Then that leaves the lion's share of the money to the provinces. But the provinces, of course, then have to satisfy the municipalities. Now, we saw the Federation of Canadian Municipalities come up with a proposal about 10 days ago, I think it was, for a split that would be a third, a third, a third. A third for the federal government, a third for the provinces, a third for municipalities. Obviously, now what's going to happen is that the money will be given to the provinces, and the federal government will say, you two sort it out between yourself. And at that point, the provinces will begin to negotiate with their own cities, and we could very well have quite different regimes emerge around the country. There could be some provinces that are much more generous with their municipalities than others. There could even be provinces that sort of play favorites between cities, individual cities. For example, in Alberta, Calgary will want so many dollars. Edmonton will want so many dollars. Each one will claim, as we've seen everyone claiming in this game, that the costs are going to be enormous, the needs are great, and the provinces will then have to decide how to split that. And so I don't think the squabbling about money is over, but the federal government has simply pushed it onto lower levels of government.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because the province's argument to the feds was, we bear more of the financial responsibility for implementing these regulatory changes and these rule changes around legalized marijuana, so we should get the lion's share of the money. The municipalities are going to say the exact same thing to the province, saying, we actually bear the lion's share of all of that fiscal responsibility in getting this done. Do we even have a sense of how and when that showdown between the provinces and the municipalities can possibly take place? Or I guess it will have to, as you say, go between each province and each municipality, right?
I think it starts today, because the cities now know who's going to have the money. We just heard Bill Morneau essentially say to the municipalities, rather, don't come to us looking for money. We've accepted a smaller slice of the pie, but we're going to eat all of our slice. You want money, you have to go to the provinces. We've given them the lion's share of the money. So I think that the cities will immediately turn their focus there. And of course, they're going to be aware that they're competing with each other cities are competing with each other for this money. They're all going to want to get their bids in early, and we will see arguments made, like the one that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities made earlier, that 60% of all policing in Canada, for example, happens at the municipal level. The federal and provincial governments together account for only the other 40%. So there are arguments to be made by the cities with regards to zoning, licensing, that a lot of this is going to fall on them.
Indeed it is. Evan, thanks for this as always.
Thanks very much.
CBC's Evan Dyer in Ottawa.